Hello viewers, welcome to News Analysis. I am Taiwo James Ayeni. In this news video, we have that President Joe Biden, the United States of America's president, has granted his son a full pardon, and it's an unconditional one at that. This was following the son's crimes. The son was convicted of 2 charges recently. First was gun felony and tax evasion, and these are serious offenses in the United States of America's Constitution. This raises a lot of uproar and dust in the air recently, where some analysts have accused President Joe Biden of being parochial with justice.
Good to have you on a Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Hope you all enjoyed the Thanksgiving holiday with your families. We're going to get started today with President Biden citing a full and unconditional pardon for his son Hunter just weeks before he was set to be sentenced in 2 federal criminal cases.
Hunter Biden was convicted earlier this year on gun charges. He also pleaded guilty to tax evasion. In a statement on Sunday, the president said in part, quote, "No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision." The move is a major reversal for the president. For months, he said he would not use his executive authority to pardon his son or commute his sentence. We have full team coverage to break this all down for us. NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss is standing by to discuss the historical context of this move. First, let's start with NBC News supervising investigative producer Sarah Fitzpatrick and our legal analyst Danny Savalos. Good to have you both with us. Sarah, you were one of the first journalists to break this story. Tell us more about the president's decision to issue this pardon before he leaves office and what we're hearing from Hunter Biden himself.
Joe, this was a long process of reporting for us over many, many months. And it was also a long process, I think, for the president. I think everyone around him did not know ultimately how and if this would transpire up until the moment that it happened. We learned that after Hunter Biden was found guilty by a jury in Delaware on felony gun charges in June, the president privately discussed with his aides the possibility of pardoning Hunter, even as the White House and the president maintained publicly that the option was off the table. Hunter's attorneys and those around him continued to prepare for his additional trial in California on tax charges, which he ultimately pled guilty to. And then even up until this week, we're preparing for sentencing memos that were scheduled to go into today, arguing why he should receive a reduced sentence from the judge. But as part of that process, his lawyers prepared a 52-page, what they called a white paper, titled The Political Prosecutions of Hunter Biden. And that paper laid out what they alleged was kind of improper process that led to Hunter Biden's legal troubles that they felt were at the direction of the president and those around him. Now, that white paper, we repeatedly asked if that had made its way to the president this week, and his lawyers did not respond to those questions. But you can see in the president's statements that he seemed to share those sentiments and those beliefs. Ultimately, this weekend, Hunter and his father spent a lot of private time together on Nantucket over the Thanksgiving holiday. They spent a lot of time in conversation, and that decision was ultimately made on Sunday, and the American public found out shortly after. Joe?
Danny, let's bring you in here and pick up on a thread there that Sarah was just discussing when we look at President Biden's statement and sort of his attitude about the fact that if Biden weren't his last name, this wouldn't have happened. The plea deal wouldn't have fallen apart. He wouldn't have been facing jail time. Does that ring true to you?
A couple things can be true at the same time. Yes, it's true that Hunter Biden got more scrutiny because he's a president's son, and that arguably led to his prosecution. But also true is the fact that a jury found Hunter Biden guilty not just of a paperwork offense, but a firearms offense in which the evidence showed that the firearm was disposed of in a public garbage can in a galactically stupid way. So those two things can be true, that Hunter Biden was, in a sense, targeted, and I say targeted by scrutiny. However, at the same time, the federal government chose to prosecute him. He was willing to plead guilty to the crime, and a jury concluded that he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, admittedly of crimes that are not frequently prosecuted. But in part, I would agree, the tax evasion crime, you have a good argument. It's not one that's brought that often. The firearms case, the unlawful user of drugs, is not prosecuted often because it's hard to prove that somebody was an unlawful user of drugs at the time they filled out a federal firearm form. But Hunter Biden did give them a heck of a lot of evidence in a book he wrote and a laptop full of data. You don't get that kind of evidence often as a federal prosecutor.
So let's look at this pardon. It covers basically an 11-year period from January 2014 to yesterday, so almost 11 years. Why is that? Is this the possibility that Hunter Biden could face more prosecution in the next Trump administration?
Yes, but this was another ill-advised move by President Biden. He should have just made the pardon forever and ever, from the beginning of time to the primordial era to the dinosaurs roam the earth. That would have been fine because it's effectively the same thing. A 10-year look back. Most federal crimes have a 5-year statute of limitations. He could have just made it unlimited. He has the power to do so under the pardon power. And now everyone's scrutinizing that 10-year period and saying, oh, it covers everything up to the time that he leaves. Therefore, he's trying to insulate him. Well, of course he's trying to insulate him. That's the pardon power. And Michael Beschloss will tell us, it is the broadest power to the president in the Constitution. It's unreviewable, and especially after the Supreme Court's immunity decision this summer, you probably cannot prosecute a president even if he hands out pardons for bags of cash.
Sarah, since June, we all know President Biden and his staff had repeatedly said that Hunter would not be given a pardon. That's why we're calling this big reversal. How are lawmakers and President-elect Trump reacting to that sudden reversal?
I think we're seeing what the president and his aides had anticipated, that there is a lot of discussion about the fact that this, was somehow improper, that he's going against his word. President Biden often says his word as a Biden is kind of his most important kind of leading organizing principle. So I think this hits politically really in a strong way. We've seen the president suggest that perhaps January 6th defendants should be given pardons as well. But I think, one thing that may be being missed in this is that while this pardon does protect Hunter, it could also put a target on his back. And that was one of the things that the president was weighing as he made this decision. Obviously, an incoming Trump administration has indicated that they intend to go after the Biden family, not just Hunter, and it's perhaps they will go after others in that circle for supporting Hunter or other conduct. And so what we may see this play out is that it actually increases the likelihood that a FBI under Kash Patel, a Justice Department, full of Trump loyalists, they may see this as, a trigger to continue targeting this family.
All right, Sarah and Danny, thank you both. Appreciate it.
President Joe Biden, in his defense, said he wished that one day America would understand what it means to be a father and a president. President Joe Biden said his son was singled out and was targeted because he was his son. However, one of the analysts said it could be true that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was targeted because his father was the president. However, the truth is that he was guilty of all the charges leveled against him.
On this pardon from NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Michael, good morning. Always a joy to have you with us. Tell us what kinds of considerations historically go into pardoning someone.
Well, just as Danny was mentioning, here we have a situation where the Constitution, the founders gave a president this almost unlimited power of pardon on federal offenses. And the whole idea was to base it on what the King of England did, one of the few cases in which we tried to emulate the king, where perhaps there had been a breakdown in the legal system, the king could make it up with mercy. So they assumed that presidents of the United States would be people who would use their judgment to remedy cases in which people had gotten a bad deal, there was a defect in the system, or, and preferably plus, a situation in which the person being pardoned would have a record of good conduct since his or her offense, and also say, didn't try to say, I didn't do this, some penance would be involved as well. So all this went into this, but obviously, it's very different when you're talking about a president of the United States pardoning his son.
Yeah, and the reality is this is not the first time a president has pardoned a family member or a close friend. Talk about the history here. What's some of the precedent for a move like this?
Roger Clinton, the brother of President Clinton, was pardoned by him for drug convictions just before the end of his presidency. Very controversial. Charles Kushner, whom President-elect Trump is now nominated as ambassador to Paris, or is about to do so, was pardoned by him, although he was the father-in-law of his daughter. So there is a history of this. But the thing is that the founders said in the Constitution, we think that presidents of the United States will be people of such character and such judgment. We expect that we are willing to give this immense power to a president of the United States, almost carte blanche.
In the broader context of things that President Biden will be remembered for, and of course, we're lucky to be able to ask you, somebody who examines presidential history so closely, how do you think this pardon will factor into Biden's legacy?
It'll certainly be considered by historians and biographers, and they will weigh a couple of things. They'll weigh in his favor the fact that this was merciful toward his son. He felt that his son had been wrongly treated. He was worried about what might happen under the administration of President-elect Trump, who is a political adversary. But at the same time, they will note that President Biden did say to the public that he would not do this and changed his mind. And there is always a question with any pardon of, is there an equal standard of justice? When Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon, people said, why does Nixon get off scot-free, when someone who stole something from, a Walmart or a Kmart would not get to do so? So those things are always raised. And most of these pardons, especially of family members, are extremely controversial. This one will be too.
Michael Beschloss, we appreciate you as always. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Well, millions of Americans are under winter alerts as powerful storms dump snow that's being measured in feet across the Great Lakes and Northeast. The weather has delayed flights and it's caused massive gridlock at airports and on the roads.
The storms are hitting at one of the worst possible times. Millions are making their way back from the Thanksgiving holiday. NBC News correspondent George Solis reports on the travel chaos from Orchard Park, New York, outside Buffalo, which is getting hammered by lake-effect snow.
Hey, I'm Joe and Savannah from a very frigid Orchard Park. You can see lots of snow here on the ground. Those snow drifts from that lake effect snow falling heavily overnight, including during Sunday night football. That was one snowy Buffalo Bills game. This lake effect snow not expected to wrap up anytime soon. Parts of New York here could see additional snow into tomorrow, which is why we are seeing some school cancellations, some class cancellations here in the region as well. Travel, of course, a nightmare when you consider it was one of the busiest travel holiday weekends coming off of the Thanksgiving period. At the Philadelphia International Airport, some power outages there made for some headaches. Roadways, some interstates here between the Pennsylvania and New York line were also congested. You saw a number of cars that were stranded. You also saw a number of accidents. You saw plows struggling to keep up with some of those clogged roadways. Really just not ideal conditions when you have all of this snow coming. There was a lot of treacherous travel between Cleveland and Buffalo, which did cause some reservations about how much traffic we were going to see during that football game. Nonetheless, some of those travel bans that were in place here in New York were lifted just in time for the game, but those advisories remain in place. This morning, roads looking fairly clear. We saw a number of plows on the roads really just doing their job, working around the clock to clear the communities. But we were hearing from residents in these areas that are actually used to getting a lot of snow who were saying this was a very dense snow. It hit very hard. Some snow blowers even having a really hard time clearing it up. That said, now we're looking at all of this snow on the ground. The dig out begins, but of course that is going to be complicated as, again, you are looking at potential more snow here in the region. Folks really hoping that this first taste of snow for the season is probably it. I mean, they're used to dealing with snow up here, but again, this was sort of a real unpredictable weather event in terms of just how much they got and when they got it. We were actually expecting some of the snow to taper off here in the Orchard Park area by kickoff, but obviously that did not happen. A lot of snow here on the ground, a lot more cleanup to have, and again, that snow, unfortunately, looking to stick around. Back to you guys.
George Solis, thank you so much. Let's get a check on that crush of winter weather.
Got meteorologist Michelle Grossman tracking these winter alerts across the Great Lakes and more. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Great to see you. And yeah, as George mentioned, we're going to see that snow continuing. We could add another 20 inches of snow in some spots, and some places have seen up to 5-6 feet of snow. So this is what radar looks like right now. It doesn't look like a whole lot when you look at it, but these are bands that have a lot of snow. Remember, the warm lake waters, upper 40s, low 50s, that gives it more moisture because it's warm. So warmer air can hold more moisture. And that's what we're going to see as we go throughout the next couple of days. And then behind this, we're going to see another system move on shore or move across the Great Lakes by Wednesday. So we are looking at Michigan, the UP of Michigan, getting a lot of snow. And it looks like the heaviest amounts of snow will be downwind of Lake Erie, where we could see additional feet of snow. 5 million people impacted by winter alerts. We have lake effect snow warnings, of course. That's where we see Erie and Cleveland, and that's where we expect the highest accumulating snow totals over the next couple of days. Winter storm warnings, winter storm watches, winter weather advisories. That's through the UP of Michigan, through the state of Michigan as well. So as we go throughout time here, we're going to see those scattered snow showers persisting throughout the region, not out of the woods yet, not today, not tomorrow. Most of it will start to wind down tomorrow before we see another system move in on Wednesday. But again, we could see reduced visibilities, really tough road travels. I was looking at some live shots earlier from Syracuse and from Erie. The roads are covered. Mondays are tough, but when you have snow falling and so much snow, it makes it even tougher. So we could see snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour. That's going to reduce visibilities. It's windy too. This is a cold wind that's blowing throughout the area as well. Tomorrow, we're going to see a brief break for the eastern half of the Great Lakes, and then the next system moves in and approaches the western parts of the Great Lakes. So how much are we expecting? Where you see the blues, that's 3 inches, 6 inches throughout Michigan, the UP of Michigan. Could see a little more in spots where you see the pinks and purples. And then notice here where you look at Lake Erie, this is downwind. So there's cold air, the cold Arctic air moves across these warm waters, and that's where we're going to see that banding set up, and that's where we could see some really heavy snowfall. That's one big story. Then we are so cold. We're looking at temperatures still below normal for the eastern half of the nation. We're looking at 20s and 30s. Look at these numbers. So many spots at freezing, below freezing, right above freezing. 33 today in Cleveland. These are daytime highs, 10 degrees below what is typical for this time of year. 20s in Indianapolis, Kansas City, below freezing in St. Louis. Cool, too, as we head towards the south. We're looking at Charleston today, 11 degrees below what is expected for this time of year, 55. Into the 40s in Memphis, and we are cold throughout the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, also in New England. Philadelphia today, 39 degrees. That's 11 degrees below normal. Then we're looking by tomorrow. Same story. This cold air is going to stay in place all week long. So if you're looking for 50s back in the forecast, we're not going to see that for some time. We're looking at that wintry chill tomorrow, temperatures in the 30s and 40s, right at the freezing mark in Blacksburg, 17 degrees below normal. And that cold air is all the way down to the southeast, Jacksonville, 55 degrees, Auburn, 48, 39 in Nashville, and below freezing in Springfield. Staying cool throughout the week. Notice all those temperatures, 30s and 40s. Nashville, you're chilly too by Thursday and Friday. Temperatures only in the low 40s. New York City, 43 on Thursday, just 34 on Friday. Then we were watching another system that's going to come through. I kind of mentioned this, that Clipper system. It's going to cross the Great Lakes. We're going to see additional snowfall there, but we're going to see this moving into the Northeast as well. The good news is if you don't like snow, if you don't like a whole lot of rain, it's a moisture storm system. The Clipper system comes from the north, not a lot of moisture to draw from. So we will see cold rain targeting the East Coast. Could see a few snowflakes mixing in also as we go throughout the later part of Wednesday and the Thursday, but most of the heavy snow will fall downwind of the Great Lakes once again. So you see those pinks and purples. We're talking Buffalo, Erie, Watertown, all those places that have the snow stacked up. But northern Maine, you could see some heavy snow as well into parts of Vermont and also New Hampshire. Could see some snow too in Massachusetts down to Connecticut and then into the interior parts of the Northeast. So southeastern Pennsylvania, you could see that down to the Appalachians. Now, as we go throughout the rest of today, we're looking sunny and mild, so really kind of quiet across the country. But these are big stories with the lake effect snow, also that winter chill. Sunny and mild throughout the Southwest, throughout the Northern Plains, and throughout the South Central states. The only hiccup in terms of any thunderstorms would be in southern Texas today.
All right. I feel like my blood has thinned because it felt like it was 10 below this weekend.
Didn't it?
I'm like, am I not used to this?
Cold.
What's going on?
You know, it was windy, and we're not used to it. It's been so
that's it.
above normal. I know. I feel like I did not go outside. My poor dog is like just looking outside. Please, someone take me out.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Viewers, what comes to your mind when you hear this? That United States of America, who is known for our upheld rule of law for many years, for decades, and who is also a model to many other countries, talking about not being parochial with justice, not being above the law. Now the president of such a country is showing a kind of favoritism. What do you think? What should we look forward to in the coming years and in coming days, even as President Donald Trump comes to power? Thank you so much for watching. I am Taiwo James Ayeni.